the Sports Betting Network.
This is the VSiN Morning Line on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Good morning, happy Tuesday, and welcome into the VSiN Morning Line. Happy October, by the way, too. Once the calendar flips from September, it means we are deep into football season now. I'm Grace Remington with Michael Lombardi, ready to recap Monday Night Football action with you. But first, let's give you a look ahead at who's coming up on the show today. Our regular Tuesday guest, Matt Youmans, VSiN host, joining us with his best bets for the upcoming weekend of football. Eric Moody stopping by to give us some fantasy analysis as the waiver wire opens today. And our other Tuesday regular, Jonathan Von Tobel, JVT, joining us with his best bets for college football and NFL later on in the show. Coming up in this hour, we're recapping Monday Night Football, taking a look at the Week 5 injury report. Matt Youmans coming up, and we will have fantasy studs and duds. But, Michael, let's get into these Monday Night Football games. I don't know. Should we start on the high note first, go with the Seahawks-Lions, or go to that?
Let's just start off knowing that October we get Halloween, right? I mean, the best part about October is there's Halloween, right? And that's the best part. So get that out of the way. I agree. Happy October to you, Grace. Yeah, I mean, I think you got to start on the good side. I mean, I don't know if I could watch the Titans in Miami. That was painful. The announcing crew, that was painful. Everything was painful about that. I mean, that was a mute from the beginning. I was by myself. That was an easy mute. That was a predetermined mute. And so we'll get to that one later. But you steer the ship wherever you want to go.
Are you surprised to hear that I do not like Halloween at all? I'm okay with fall.
God, Grace.
I know, right?
How is that even
in my
possible,
neighborhood,
Grace?
I
would not admit
up.
that to many people, Grace. I would not admit that to many people. Halloween is like everybody loves. Who doesn't love Halloween?
Okay, costume parties are fun. I'll do a costume party year round. I hosted a few this year, but it's the scary stuff. Just why do we need to put more of that stuff out in the world? That's the part I can't stand.
Oh my.
I know. You're going to send me to
It's
Dr.
not really
Phil
scary.
again.
It's all fake. My 7-year-old grandson loves it. I mean, he's not scared by it. So anyway, that's another interesting nugget, Grace. I got to tell you.
That's what my family says too. Grace, it's all fake. That's so sad. Okay, let's get into this game though, because it's not fake. Is Jared Goff setting an NFL record, throwing a perfect game, 18 for 18 passes. He had more receiving touchdowns than he did in completions. That was just the kind of night the Lions had. And we were going into this game kind of wondering, Jared Goff having an off year, is what's going wrong there? And then he comes out and throws this. What did you think of his performance?
Well, I really thought, he was spectacular and his accuracy was incredible. But I thought this game was more about the Lions getting back to who the Lions are. Goff only threw the ball 18 times. And, I think Dan Campbell decided from the beginning of this game he wanted to basically show everybody that he's got his team back on track. And he took the ball. Typically, they don't do that. They've only done that 3 times in their career in terms of Dan Campbell's coaching career, to take the ball first because he wants to win the middle 8. But he wanted to make a statement. Now, they had a punt on the first drive, but they eventually got things rolling again, and they got back to who they are. This offensive line dominated the game, which is what we love about the Detroit Lions, which is what they need to do. They were always in complete control of the game. They had Geno Smith under constant pressure. I know he gained over 500 yards of offense. They had the ball for 34 minutes, but this Lions team was in control. I thought that Goff played really well. I think David Montgomery is so underrated as a running back. I don't understand why Chicago would get rid of him and then sign Swift to basically more money than he got, Montgomery. I think the combination between the two, the receivers, Tim Patrick comes in and makes really great plays for them. So I was really, this is a game I wanted the Lions to impress me, and they did. They did it all phases. Now, look, defensively, that Seattle team's pretty good. You play Seattle, if they can protect, which they're not very good at, then, they're going to get open. They have weapons, and with Kenneth Walker's on the field, they're a dynamic offense. So you look at the stat sheet and you say, well, they gave up a ton of yards. But I thought this was really a Lion. This is the way the Lions need to play from here on out.
Yeah, David Montgomery, 12 carries for 40 yards, including that crazy play where he just dragged the entire Seattle defense with him. I mean, half the league's running backs, more than half, would have gone down on the initial hit there. And that, of course, sets up a nice touchdown for the Lions to blow the game open at that point in the third quarter. But you kind of mentioned the defense here. I mean, if Lions really make a playoff push, what are some things they need to fix? Because they allowed 38 first downs and over 500 yards of offense to the Seahawks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, the Seahawks were playing from behind, and they were trying to limit the big play. I think there's a little bit of junk yards in this, 500 yards. When the game was on the line, when Seattle got it back in play and they ran the fourth down call where they got called for a pick and then they had a punt, they were getting some stops. I think, to me, they, against this team, they had opportunities. I thought Geno Smith was really crafty in the pocket. He escaped a lot of sacks. He was able to get away from the pressure. I think the bigger thing here for Detroit's defense was they only forced Seattle into 10 third downs. That's not enough third downs if you're playing good defense. That means you're getting first downs and 2 downs. I mean, Detroit only had 6 first downs for the entire game. Think about that. 6 third downs in an entire game. That means you're just getting yards on first and second down. So I definitely think they need to shore that up. I mean, there's a lot to work on. Detroit goes into the bye. They've got to get their defensive front healthier. I think that's going to be important. But they're going to play from in front a lot, and if they play from in front and they can get Hutchinson, and they need another rusher to go along. Davenport is out for the season. They were hoping he would be that other rusher. I think that's what they need to work on, Grace.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. Geno Smith didn't have a bad game. I mean, he was efficient. It's just when you play an offense like the Lions that's scoring on every drive, you have to have a near perfect game. And so the Seahawks were just caught in a hole that they couldn't get out of. So Detroit covers as the 4.5-point favorite. The over 47.5 hits. These games are just shootout after shootout 4 years in a row now. But let's go to the other game now, where the Titans finally get in the win column, 31-12 over the Dolphins. So Tennessee covering as a 2.5-point dog. The over 37.5 hits in this one. What stood out to you about the Titans-Dolphins game?
Well, when I worked for the Raiders, because we had a lot of players that were in Al Davis's love affair house and that weren't really good enough, but they were fast or they were big or there was something about them, but they couldn't play football. I would always say to everybody, we're just a couple of injuries away from having a good team. And they had to be the right injuries, right? They had to be at the specific where we could get that player off the field and get a better player on the field. That happened last night. I mean, I don't know the severity of Will Levis's shoulder injury. I don't know what it is, but the only reason they won this game is because Levis was standing next to Brian Callahan, and they put a quarterback who wasn't going to hurt the team. I mean, that first interception Levis throws, I saw enough of that. I would have benched him after that interception, And so, to me, I think Tennessee finally got their running game going. They had 40 carries in the game. They had 142 yards rushing. Rudolph only had to throw the ball 17 times. He protected the football. His longest pass play was 27 yards, so he really wasn't having to extend the ball down the field. He made critical throws. But again, let's flip the page to Miami. I mean, I don't know what the disc jockey's doing over there. I really don't. I mean, he's supposed to be a run game guru, Mike McDaniel. He's supposed to be the best running coach, and that's all we've heard about since he's been down there. And he had 30 carries for 106 yards. I mean, Matt LaFleur gave us basically a blueprint for running the single wing and won 2 games with Malik Willis. Meanwhile, with all these skill players he has around him, the Miami Dolphins look so incompetent. They don't look like they know what they're doing. They really look undisciplined as a football team, and there's no wonder why they've never beaten a good team under the Mike McDaniel regime. I really question what's going on down there. They don't look like they have the same energy, the same discipline. It looks like the players are running the team, and the team isn't really responding. I thought it was a really flat performance. To lose that game as badly as they lost, to me, was humiliating for them.
Yeah, you look at the Dolphins' last three, actually, all 4 games of the season, they have not led a single minute in regulation. Obviously, week 1 they win because of a game-winning field goal, but what does that tell you when a team has not held a single lead through an entire quarter of the football season?
And they've shown no improvement. I mean, they've shown no improvement. I mean, he had a bunch of time to get ready. He had the Thursday night game. He had a bunch of time to get ready to go out in Seattle, and they looked horrible in Seattle. They looked like they didn't. Now, look, Skylar Thompson, okay. Now he gets Hundley in there, and Hundley has played well for Baltimore. I mean, we've seen him play well. But, you can't run the football, goes for it at 4th down at midfield. Like, why would you give the Titans, whose offense isn't exactly explosive, why would you give them an advantage of having a field? They have the best thing they have on their offense is Nick Folk, the kicker. He makes play. He can kick the ball. So why would you give him the ball at midfield when you have an offense that really can't run the football? I mean, the problems for Miami, besides McDaniel as coach, is their offensive line is horrible. I mean, they can't block anybody. And Tua needed to get rid of the ball in 2.1 seconds, whatever he did, or else it was over with. Look, I'm not a huge believer in Tua, but Tua has saved the head coach tremendously because this offense is a disaster.
Right, and the Titans' run defense, I mean, it might be more indicative of the Titans' defense because that was supposed to be a good unit and is heading into this game, but they were able to shut down Miami's run game as well, limiting them to just 72 yards on 26 designed runs last night. So through the air, through the ground, nothing working for the Dolphins right now. All right, coming up next, Micah Parsons has never missed a football game at any level in his life. He might do so for the first time this Sunday. We're looking at the NFL injury report next on the VSiN Morning Line.
Time. There's nothing more valuable. It's what drives everyone to make the most of every moment. We celebrate living large in the now. In a city where time disappears, we create experiences that electrify the soul and memories that will last forever. We go big, we go all night, and here, everyone is invited. So get loose and get loud.
This is Circa. You'll have the time of your life.
Tuesday on Follow the Money, it's here. The MLB playoffs. We got all the props and the previews. We recap the doubleheader in Monday Night Football. And Paul Stone with picks and futures in college football. Follow the Money weekdays, 4 to 7 Eastern on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Want to see who at VSiN is on a hot streak? Go to VSiN.com/picks to see all the selections and weekly leaderboard of VSiN hosts, writers, and guests. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber and get every pick sent to your inbox daily. Just head to VSiN.com/pro.
So, Paulie, have you had a chance to read the VSiN Daily yet?
Yeah, came in at 3 a.m. What's Bill doing up that late?
Well, rumor has it, it starts off with a 12-hour meditation session.
Then he just pours himself over film and live TV, really focusing and taking it all in. Fills in with the biggest insiders, talking trade secrets, strategies, the whole nine, absorbing the info.
And then and only then can the writing process begin.
In Las Vegas, Bill's Late Night becomes your early morning. Wake up to the very latest betting insights in your inbox with the VSiN Daily. Sign up for free at vsin.com/newsletter.
You're watching the VSiN Morning Line right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back into the VSiN Morning Line. I'm Grace Remington with Michael Lombardi, getting you ready for another week of football. Lots of injuries to get to today, so we're going to run down the most notable of them one by one. Michael's going to tell us the impact of each one to the team. So starting with Cowboys pass rush specialist Micah Parsons dealing with a high ankle sprain. Michael, there's different levels of ankle sprains here, but I thought the most impressive thing about Micah Parsons, I didn't know this until yesterday when I heard people talking about it, he has never missed a game in his life in high school or college or the NFL. He is now listed as doubtful against the Steelers. What kind of impact would that have for the Cowboys?
Well, I mean, then combined with the name below him, DeMarcus Lawrence, and now you have two of their best players out. And that's really that's significant. They're two best pass rushers, and we know this about the Dallas Cowboys. They can't stop the run. Now, they did it against the Giants with Singletary, but for the most part, when you go into Pittsburgh, you're going to get heavy dosage of run, and it's going to be hard. And now you don't have to worry about where is the quarterback, who you're protecting, all those things. So, you know, where do you have to set the protections? Parsons over here, this is what we need to do. I think to me that's that makes it very simplistic for the Pittsburgh Steelers as they prepare for this game. And, you know, the Cowboys are a star-based team. Their depth is – one of the things that has hurt the Cowboys this year is Dan Quinn took all their depth with him to Washington, especially defensively. And I think now that you lose two more starters, a team with no depth becomes depthless.
DeMarcus Lawrence, by the way, out for 4 to 8 weeks. Now, one injury that's been a little interesting the last few days is Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice unfortunately hurt his knee on an interception play. His own quarterback, Pat Mahomes, ran into him in one of those bang-bang situations. It's feared that he has a torn ACL, but we have not heard anything official on that. Michael, what do you think is taking so long to get this diagnosis?
Well, one thing you know for sure, they don't ever mess that up, right? They know they MRI'd him. They know exactly what he has. They're just not telling us what he has. So, right? So, it's a little bit like anything. I mean, there's no way if you have a partial tear, you have a tear. There's no such thing as that. So, look, whatever they come out and whatever they tell us it'll be, but I think they're planning on no Rashee Rice for the near future, and I'm sure what they're doing is going through the trade market right now. I mean, you've got certain teams that are 0-4 or certain teams that want to dump some cap, and Brett Veach is really smart, their general manager. I'm sure he's going to be shopping and looking for a wide receiver that he could bring in to replace Rice, because right now their offense isn't exactly playing very well. I mean, they scored 17 points last week, but they're winning with their defense. They're going to need another player on offense.
Right. Time to start viewing this Chiefs team as a defensive-led team. Another wide receiver dealing with an injury is Christian Watson of the Packers. He has a high ankle sprain, but going on the IR is possible for him. How would this impact the Packers' passing game?
Well, they're so used to not having Watson, Grace. I mean, he kind of always is, injured in some way. It's always been his hamstring. Now it's his high ankle. I mean, he gives them a vertical outside receiver, but I think the Packers are pretty resourceful in terms of how they compensate for not having him. He makes them a better team, but I don't think it's going to affect them in this game against the Rams. Look, they should be able to run the football effectively against the Rams. Their defense has to rise up and play better. This Ram team is beat up. They're not very explosive. Matthew Stafford's taken a ton of hits, and they went into Chicago, and I didn't understand why Chicago was favored by 3. Just like in the opening game against Tennessee, I didn't understand why Chicago was favored by 3.5, and both times they covered. So I've now made a rule. If I don't understand why Chicago's favored, bet them.
I think that sounds like a legitimate betting system. Okay, Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson. At first they called it a hip injury. It is now officially a strained oblique. He left the last game. Joe Flacco came in, did well in relief, got them to win, but Anthony Richardson is now day to day. What kind of protocol should the Colts take with AR?
Well, if he can't run, if he can't move, I mean, that's the best thing he does, besides the occasional deep throw that he makes, or like the first throw of the game he throws to Michael Pittman. That was a great throw. But to me, his mobility and his threat of a run, the problem you have is if you're Ryan Nielsen of the Jacksonville Jaguars, you're preparing for the game. You got to prepare for Flacco, but you also got to prepare for Richardson. So it gives you a little bit of a problem. This is why Shane Steichen and the Colts will play this along pretty well and make sure that, they don't really reveal what's happening. But look, let's face it, the Titans are better with Mason Rudolph than they are with Will Levis. And the Colts are better with Joe Flacco right now than they are with Anthony Richardson. I think there's no question about that. Now, you don't get the movement, you don't get the second play, all that stuff, but you're not getting enough offense out of Richardson to begin with. And if he's not healthy, I don't see how you could play him. If he's not 100%, especially if it's an oblique, those things are really hard. And where you worry about obliques, again, I'm not a doctor, is if you have that sports hernia. Sometimes those oblique become really sports hernias, and then you miss 6 to 8 weeks.
So when you said Shane Steichen and his staff won't really reveal what's going on, these two quarterbacks have very different styles of play. Are you talking about a gamesmanship type thing here where they want the opponent to prepare for either Flacco or Richardson?
Yeah. Yeah, if you are the defensive coordinator of the Jets, you have to prepare for both, because even if Richardson starts, there's a good chance he gets injured and he leaves the game. So you've got to really spend time preparing for both, because the offenses are different. You got no run game. You don't have to really worry about your pass rush lanes. You can really fly back. You can call different kind of blitzes, but then you've got to do a really good job of disguising, because Flacco's good at reading what you're doing. So it's it becomes a whole other process that you have to go through to prepare for the game. But I'll say this, Flacco playing, I don't know if that'll move the line, but I know this. I'm sure that Jacksonville would rather play against Richardson and have his inconsistencies than Flacco, knowing he can make the throw down the field.
Yeah, I don't think that'll move the line either. They're both probably replacement level quarterbacks, but I agree with you. They'd much rather have the high variance quarterback out there if you're the opponent. One more injury to get to. Panthers linebacker Shaq Thompson, a lone bright spot on this Panthers team, and now for the second year in a row, he's dealt a season-ending injury. This one, a torn Achilles. He went to Instagram, said, For all those who think I'm retiring, haha, I'm not. I'll be back. But what kind of blow is this for the Panthers defense?
Well, it's a huge blow for them. I mean, they don't really have anybody that can handle the defense, make all the calls, do the things that they need to do. He was their team leader. Now, Josie Jewell, he was with Evero before in Denver, so he certainly can help. He starts at inside linebacker along with them. But look, this defense has got to start to play better. There's no question. They've lost two key players, Derek Brown and now Shaq Thompson, and that really becomes a real problem. And what we saw Cincinnati do to them on Sunday, they just throw the ball up and down the field. I think we're going to see more of that. Their secondary's not good enough. They can't really get a pass rush. I know they signed Clowney to get a pass rush, but that hasn't really worked out, Grace. So, I think that's the issue. But I think the more important thing, besides all these injuries, Grace, since you've mentioned we're in the 1st of October, I mean, this is your time of the year. It's baseball, Grace. I mean, talk to us about Major League Baseball. Tell us what's happening. I mean, give us this, I know the Met fans were going crazy with their unbelievable win with Francisco Lindor hitting the home run to win the game for him. But talk about the playoffs and who you like.
Yeah. Oh, Lindor was so casual, too, rounding the bases on that home run. It's like been there, done that. Congrats to you and all the Mets fans. That was a wild way to end the season. But this is why we love October. Best month of the year. We have all sports either winding down or kicking back up. There's lots of entertainment to go around. But let's take a look at the playoff bracket here on the AL side. You have the Yankees with the 1 seed, the Guardians as the 2. So they're both getting buys into the LDS. Starting tonight in the wild card series, you have Houston hosting Detroit as a -149 favorite on the money line, and Baltimore a -160 favorite hosting the Royals. I think the Royals could make some noise here. They've been an underrated team all season long. Their bullpen has been one of their biggest weaknesses, but you look at the month of September, with the additions they've made, they're now a top 5 bullpen. Bobby Witt leading that offense. Hopefully they're going to get Vinny Pasquantino back, and the O's bats. I mean, they have the starting pitching. They have a solid bullpen, but the offense has been a little bit slow to end the year. So that's a series I could see being pushed to 3 games. On the other side of the bracket in the NL, you have the Dodgers, the 1 seed, the Phillies, the 2 seed. So they both get a bye into the LDS. And then the wild card series starting today will be the New York Mets at the Brewers, with Milwaukee a -140 money line favorite, and the Braves traveling all the way to San Diego after playing a doubleheader. The Padres a -163 favorite. I think, you look at the Braves, they could have made a little push here, but they're being caught in a really awkward situation. I mean, both the Braves and Mets having to play 6 games in a 5-day stretch. The Padres, I think, could be a sleeper pick to win the whole thing. So that'll be a tough path for the Braves there out on the West Coast. But we'll cap those games later on in the show in the 9 o'clock hour, so stay around for that. Coming up next, we have Matt Youmans joining the show with his best bets for baseball and the NFL. You're watching the VSiN Morning Line.
VSiN's got you covered for the start of the season with our football special. For $175, you'll get access to everything VSiN has to offer. With VSiN Pro, you'll receive daily picks straight to your inbox, detailed analysis on every game, and exclusive data like our betting splits to help you become a sharper bettor. Get all of this for just $175 through the Super Bowl. Or try a monthly subscription and get your first 30 days for only $9.99. Don't miss out on this offer. Sign up now at VSiN.com/subscribe.
This is VSiN, the sports betting network.
You're watching the VSiN Morning Line right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back into the VSiN Morning Line. We've recapped Monday Night Football, some of the biggest injury news in the NFL. Now it's time to send you on your way with some best bets. And to help us do so, we welcome in VSiN host Matt Youmans on the Progressive Guest Line. Matt, thanks so much for being here with us this morning. Really exciting MLB postseason. I want to start there because it feels like the most wide open field we've had in a long time. You could really build a case for any team in this bracket right now. But we'll start with the games tonight. Padres at Braves. Braves in a really tough spot here. How are you playing this game?
Both points you just made right there, Grace. I was talking about this on our show last night. Now, I know the Dodgers, Phillies, and Yankees are going to be the favorites, but it feels like this is a pretty wide-open baseball postseason. I think the Padres, and also you're right about what you said about the Braves being in a tough spot. They played a doubleheader on Monday. Most of the pitching has been used the last 2 days. And now the Braves, after celebrating getting into the playoffs, have to go to the West Coast and open this series against a Padres team that's going to start Michael King, who's acquired in that Juan Soto trade with the Yankees. And King's been outstanding. He's got 10.4 strikeouts per 9, ERA under 3. Last 2 starts against the Dodgers and Astros, 12 innings, 8 hits, 2 earned runs, 10 Ks. And over his last 4 starts, Michael King, 24-6 strikeout to walk ratio. He beat the Dodgers last Tuesday, so he's rested. There are a lot of signs that point to the Padres here. This number was minus 134, which I thought was really too low when we did the show on Monday night. Now about 155 is the best price you can get. But I just think there's so many factors working in the Padres' favor. That's got to be the play tonight.
Yeah, minus 134 is exactly where I would have priced the Padres in this one. So no surprise the market has moved that way. How about the Tigers and Stros? You have Tarek Skubal, who is the Cy Young frontrunner, and Framber Valdez. I like the Tigers in this spot, and I see you do too. So what are your reasons for backing Detroit here?
Well, I like the Tigers. I don't love them in this spot, but Skubal is, as an underdog at plus 130, is kind of a tough price to refuse. The guy who's won 18 games, struck out 228 over 192 innings. He's got a whip under 1, 0.92. How about his 4 September starts? Tarek Skubal, 23 and 2/3 innings, 4 earned runs, and 27 strikeouts to 2 walks. And then on the flip side here with the Astros, Yordan Alvarez, who hit 35 homers this season, has got a knee injury. He's unlikely to play in this Tuesday game. He might not even play in this wild card series, but it's a pretty good bet he's going to be out of the lineup on Tuesday night. So I think the Tigers with Skubal, who's as good as it gets, pretty attractive play as a dog here tonight.
Hey, Matt, I know that baseball is coming into full play, but after last night, watching the Miami Dolphins, I can honestly say I will never back them again. I mean, the disc jockey, Mike McDaniel, I'm not sure what he's doing besides spinning records over there, but what was your thoughts of that game last night? And then, of course, the Lions game, too. I know you were watching both of them.
Of course, because I bet the Lions. I did not bet the Dolphins. I wasn't sure what you're going to get from Tyler Huntley. I watched him in the preseason. I thought he was bad. I know a lot of people had high hopes for Huntley last night, but Mike McDaniel said what you saw in practice, what you saw on the field Monday night was not the same. I also think Mike McDaniel's been overhyped by the media because he's a colorful character, has some funny quotes, quirky personality. The media loves him, talks him up, but the results have not been there. And when Tua goes down, this offense goes in the tank. I think the Dolphins are averaging 11 points per game, and one of the worst offenses in the NFL right now. It just, Tyreek Hill, too. I was disappointed in Hill. He lets that backwards pass go off his hands last night. Doesn't even chase the ball. When the ball's bouncing on the ground, you got to chase it. That's a mental error. There's a lot of reasons the Dolphins were not sharp last night. And I agree with you. They're not on my playlist. The disc jockey's not on my playlist. And the Dolphins, definitely a team that's headed in the wrong direction. So, it's hard to get beat like that by the Titans. but they did. They got beat down at home by the Titans. And I also think Mason Rudolph gives the Titans probably a better chance to win. But it's one series last night for Will Levis to make his first big mistake.
Yeah. Let's take a look at some of your NFL plays here. Raiders-Broncos could have been the lowest total on the board, but that honor goes to the Dolphins and Patriots. But lots of money coming in on the Raiders side here. I'm actually seeing some 2.5s at this point. So why do you like the Raiders in this spot?
Well, this is another one. I like the Raiders. I don't love the Raiders, but it's kind of a number play on +3, which is out there at DraftKings and a few other books, and it's trending towards 2.5. The Raiders have beat the Broncos 8 straight times, so it's a matchup issue too. But you know what? There's not many teams the Raiders would have beat on Sunday. Not many teams other than the Browns. They kind of caught the perfect opponent in that situation. Outgained the Browns 268 to 240. Alexander Madison and Zamir White, who had trouble moving the ball at all on the ground this season, combined for 110 rushing yards against the Browns. Gardner Minshew is completing 70.7% of his passes this season, a lot of short throws, not a lot of deep stuff. But again, the Broncos had 186 total yards against the Jets, 3.3 yards per play. Bo Nix had 60 passing yards on 25 attempts. You look at the Broncos' offensive numbers, and it's not really a team that should be laying a full field goal or more in any game, considering the Raiders have been so successful against Denver in this series recently. Is Max Crosby going to be back? I don't know. Michael, what do you think? Do we have a couple Raiders stars who are making business decisions here? Devontae Adams sitting out with a hamstring. Max Crosby did not even show up at the stadium Sunday.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, that program's undisciplined, and you knew it was going to fall apart. I mean, I know they got their win, but it took a phantom holding call to get that win. I mean, in all honesty, and now they go against the Denver team, which I agree with everything you said about Denver's offense. So I think Denver's defense is sneaky good. I really do. And they dominated the Jets. I mean, I know it was raining, and I know Bobby Saleh wasn't anticipating it to be raining, but they dominated the Jets' offensive line. They kicked their butts up front. It was really impressive. I watched that tape yesterday, and I thought, man, Denver's really good. I agree with you. It's hard with their offense, but when they get their running game going like they did in the second half against the Jets, at least they have some continuity. Plus, Sean Payton against Antonio Pierce, I think I'll go with that. I think I'll go with Sean on that one. How about the Chiefs? We know Rice is going to be out, right? There was a little bit of resurgence from Kelsey, but this offense isn't what it needs to be, especially with the left tackle of Moses not being very good. They tried to play the rookie, but he can't play this time at this point. So what do you think about the Chiefs this week?
Yeah, that's Monday night against the Saints. By the way, before the season, we talked about this on your show that I played the Broncos over 5.5 wins. I thought they were going to be better than most. I think you were on the Broncos as well.
Yep.
And, you know, it's turning out that way. Sean Payton is going to get his team to overachieve, where, you know, coaches like McDaniel and Pierce are going to be underachieving type teams. And that's what we're seeing already 4 weeks into the season. You know, next Monday night, here's the deal with I think the Saints coming off 2 really frustrating losses. Obviously, they got really outgained by the Eagles a week ago. Probably deserved to lose that game. But they blew one to the Falcons on Sunday. I think the Chiefs are in a tough spot here next Monday because you got no Hollywood Brown, no Rashee Rice, no Isaiah Pacheco in this offense. And aside from that deep ball that Mahomes hit to Xavier Worthy on Sunday, you're not seeing many big plays out of this KC offense. And I also think this defense has been probably, aside from Chris Jones, who can blow things up, they're not really putting a lot of pressure on the quarterback. I think the Saints off to down to the wire type of losses should be in a good spot on Monday night. This number is hanging around. It was 6, pretty much 5.5 everywhere now. I want to get 6 on the Saints, so it's not a play for me right now. But there's a decent chance I'm going to play the Saints next Monday night. Michael, the Chiefs are 4-0. They're not that far away from being 1-3.
Yeah, no, I mean, and let me just add this about the Saints, and I think the Saints are going to be, that line's going to move back to them. The Saints are 2 bad defensive calls by their head coach, Dennis Allen. They played man-to-man on 3rd and 18 against Dallas Goedert and got picked, and they lost that game. And then last week they play man-to-man in a trail technique, and they get a pass interference. I mean, that game was theirs for the taking. And look, we know this. Carr reverted back to Carr. Check downs, couldn't make plays in the red zone. And when Taysom Hill left the game, that's when they lost their goal line offense, and that's what happened. They turned down the points. The thing that scares me is Carr going into Kansas City. Now, he's played well there before when he was with the Raiders, but once, Chris Jones starts breathing heavy in the inside, Carr could be running for the hills, Matt. So that worries me tremendously.
No doubt about it.
Matt Youmans, VSiN host, thanks so much for joining us today with your best bets.
Okay. You bet. Thank you.
All right, coming up next, more betting analysis and best bets. We're continuing to get you ready for Week 5 of the NFL season. This is the VSiN Morning Line.
In the heart of downtown Las Vegas, a sports oasis awaits. Stadium Swim, the ultimate outdoor amphitheater, built for the ultimate sports fan, with a colossal screen that brings the game closer than ever. Reserve a daybed, private cabana, or lounge in the center of it all. 6 pools to dive into as the game heats up. And the best part, there's never an off-season. Open 365 days a year. Stadium Swim, it's always spectator season.
Looking for the ultimate sports betting podcasts? VSiN has got you covered. With a wide range of podcasts covering every major sport, we're here to help you make smarter bets every season. The Baseball Betting Show with Greg Peterson gives you daily insights into finding value on each day's MLB card. And check out Long Shots, where we deep dive into the world of golf betting, providing you with expert insights to help you bet every tournament. Find all of these podcasts and more at VSiN.com/podcasts or your favorite podcast platform.
You're watching the VSiN Morning Line right here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Welcome back into the VSiN Morning Line. I'm Grace Remington with Michael Lombardi, and after one of the wildest college football weekends we have ever seen, kind of a bummer this weekend, Michael. Only one ranked-on-ranked matchup with Mizzou and Texas A&M. Of course, I mean, we've both watched this sport long enough to know there's never really a boring weekend. There's never a weekend that goes exactly how you want it to go. Anyone can be upset at any time because, I mean, they're not amateur athletes, but they are not as developed as the NFL professionals, right? So, I mean, you have future NFL players playing future accountants, and with that type of discrepancy and flukiness, stuff's going to happen. So, I don't want to call this a boring college football weekend, slightly a letdown, but Mizzou, Texas A&M is the only ranked-on-ranked matchup here, with A&M a 2-point home favorite. Early kickoff, 11 a.m. local time, so even those early kickoffs can get a little sketchy. But you talked to Eli Drinkwitz quite a bit. It might not be the season, Mizzou has hoped to have. They are undefeated, but it was close against Boston College, close against Vandy, not as much of explosive plays as we're used to seeing with them. So what's your kind of read on the Tigers so far?
Well, I think the hardest job any coach has is to get his team ready for a game that they think they're going to win. I mean, it's hard to get your team excited to play against Vanderbilt, but Vanderbilt's much better this year. I mean, there's no question Vanderbilt's a better team, but that they already have a preconceived notion. And everybody thinks, and they've been patted on the back so much, starting with Elliott patting everybody, our producer patting everybody at the Missouri program on the back, that they drink the rat poison. I mean, they have. And now all of a sudden, this is the first, to me, this is their season. This game, we're going to find out really about how good Missouri is, because all offseason we were told they have an easy schedule. They should be in the big party. They should be in the 12-team playoff. They're playing it. So I think we're going to find out how good they are and what they can accomplish, and where are they offensively? Can they make those explosive plays? I mean, Luther Bolden, he's incredible, but they've got to find ways to get him the football, and then somebody else has got to take the pressure off him as well. But I get the sense that they'll rally. I think this is a game where, Texas A&M isn't explosive offensively. They're not going to run away from them. We saw that Arkansas game was back and forth. I think Arkansas offensively, has really improved from last year and what they've done. And defensively, they hung in there. They're just not talented enough. But I think Missouri is.
Texas A&M has been playing better with quarterback Marcel Reed. His legs open a lot of possibilities for them. But, yeah, Mizzou's schedule, they play at Alabama October 26th. And then right after that, they host Oklahoma. But going into the season, I think their odds to win the SEC closed at 17-1. That was viewed by a lot of people as a nice value play there. But, hey, undefeated, as producer Elliott always says, don't apologize for a win. A win is a win. So right now they're still on track. But I think the other thing about Missouri we have to take into account, we all weren't sure how good they were going to be on defense. I mean, this team has only given up 12 points a game, and their relative scoring defense, when you add in all the numbers, is sixth in the nation. Now, you could say, well, they haven't played anybody. Yeah, they haven't played anybody, but the one thing where we've been disappointed with them is more offensively. I mean, that's where they have not been as good as we thought they would be, and they're still 24th in the nation. So sometimes what happens is we have this expectation. It doesn't meet our expectations, but their numbers, I think one of the things they've got to improve on is their yards per play. They're just at 57th in the nation in yards per play. That they need to make that explosive play. They're 84th in yards per pass attempt. If they get that, then this team will be back on track. Mm-hmm. Now, so the SEC race, definitely a competitive one. Another one just as competitive as the Big 12. And the things we needed to happen for my K-State futures to do well exactly happened. K-State beat OK State. Arizona beat Utah. For Utah, Michael, I don't know if Cam Rising still exists. I don't know if you followed the whole Kate Middleton debacle where we don't know if she exists. I feel like we're doing the same thing with Cam Rising. Last year, Kyle Whittingham played the whole, is he suiting up? Is he not? He'd be warming up on the field. I think he did for 7 straight games, and then he didn't play. We've already seen that twice this year. So a little gamesmanship going on from Whittingham here. But when you look from a betting perspective, Cam Rising is worth probably 7 points to the spread, going from him to Isaiah Wilson, who is Zach Wilson's little brother. They're still a good team. They're just not elite without him. So their Big 12
Zach Wilson's little brother's talented, though. He's
Mm-hmm.
talented. He's just not experienced. I think he is really talented. He was a really good-looking high school prospect. I mean, look, Utah's, they scored 10 points against Arizona, and the week before, Arizona gave up 31 to Kansas State. So, I mean, this isn't like you're playing against an elite defense. Arizona was 63rd in the nation defensively. So, you just, to me, their offense is kind of going in this, kind of what you described. Is he playing? Is he not playing? What's going to happen? And when you looked at Arizona, I thought Utah would be able to run the ball. I mean, they were the 80th best run defense in the league last year, and they just didn't do it. They weren't able to run the football. I agree. They need Rising back, but I think that if you're going to move on, I mean, look, how old is Rising? I mean, he's probably
like 27.
Yeah, I mean, he's been playing forever. It might be time to move on to Zach's little brother, because he does have potential. He can spin it like his brother could. He looks like he's got great rhythm with the throws. So, look, I think that Whittingham does a really good job. And against Arizona State, which is improved, I mean, they're 3-1. This should be a game that they could win and dominate with no matter who plays quarterback, because Arizona State, I know they've really improved in what they've been able to do, but, they lost to Texas Tech 30-22. What was that, about 2 weeks ago? But all their other wins have been against really bad opponents. Wyoming's not very good this year. Mississippi State's a disaster, and Texas State isn't very good. So this is a game Utah can get right.
Another interesting team in the Big 12 is Iowa State. They're undefeated after beating North Dakota, Iowa in a 1-point game, Arkansas State in a blowout, and then they shut out Houston last week 20-0. There's nothing really flashy about the Cyclones, but maybe that's what their strength is that they just kind of hold strong and kind of lull you into a false sense of security when you're playing them. They're actually a top 10 team in terms of points allowed. Hold on, I just had it pulled up. Allowing 7.3 points a game. But Matt Campbell doing a good job over there.
Yeah, they're just bad. They're typical. They're like the other Iowa team. They win with their defense. Their offense is ugly. I mean, they're the worst. I mean, when we think of the Big 12, we think of high-flying offense. We don't think of defense. And this defense has not played very well. I mean, this defense has played very well. They were very fortunate in the Iowa game to come back and make that late field goal and win that game, and which was huge for them. They beat North Dakota in the opener, but they don't give up a lot of points. I mean, other than the Iowa game, no one scored more than 10 points on them. So, but their offense is, one of the things is when your offense struggles like this, you're always vulnerable. Your defense has to play perfect every week, and sometimes that's really hard to do. I mean, Baylor, they got well behind in the game last week, and they come storming back. I mean, they made a competitive game with the BYU thing. And then they lose overtime to Colorado on the Hail Mary, or Baylor could be 3-2. I mean, Baylor's better than their record indicated, but unfortunately they've lost to Utah, they've lost to Colorado, and they've lost to BYU, so they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I just pulled up the Big 12 odds now. Kansas State back in front as a 4-1 favorite to win, but there is not a lot of space between these teams at the top of it. It's really a logjam. Iowa State right behind them at plus 425, Utah at plus 450, and then Arizona creeping back up at plus 650. Then you kind of get into the long shots. UCF 12-1, Colorado 13-1, BYU, despite being undefeated and being really a legitimate team, 15-1. So one of the most competitive conferences out there. Before we wrap this college football block, I do want to squeeze one play in here. I'm taking Michigan +3 at Washington. This is just a numbers play. Several models have this as a pick'em. The SP Plus by Bill Connolly is one of them. This will come down to limited possessions. Both of these teams are strong on the line of scrimmage. Wolverines are the 3rd slowest team in the country, running plays at 31.4 seconds a play. Huskies also a slow team. Very different look than what Kalen DeBoer was running last year. Huskies rank 103rd in pace, running plays at 28.3 seconds per play. So for me, it's about Michigan finally staying true to their identity, running the ball, controlling the clock, limited possessions here, so it's going to be a low-scoring, tight game. So I'll take Michigan plus 3 points. Michael, any brief thoughts on that game?
Well, I think, look, Washington could be undefeated, but they really have messed up in the red zone. They run a speed option against Washington State. It was a disaster. And last week against Rutgers, they left points on the board. They didn't kick a field goal, and then they couldn't score on the red zone when the game mattered.
Yeah, they haven't been great at finishing drives. Meanwhile, Michigan has, and they've been efficient running the ball as well. Coming up next, we reset at the top of the hour with news or noise, and get ready to welcome in some more guests. You're watching the VSiN Morning Line.
A new football season means a new lineup on VSiN. Start your day with sharp betting analysis on the VSiN